and welcome to episode 5 of the Chambana Proud podcast, brought to you by Furniture Lounge, which is selling mid-century modern furniture in downtown Champaign. This is Carly with the Champaign County EDC.
And this is Terri with Visit Champaign County.
Hi, Terri.
Hi, Carly.
How are you?
I'm great.
Terri, you're coming off of a few really big weeks.
Yes.
And you're also now an award-winning designer.
Yes, you could say that.
No, we are saying, I am saying that.
Yes. All right. Okay. Well,
so brag about yourself for a minute.
So every year we as an organization, Visit Champaign County, goes to the Illinois Governor's Conference on Travel and Tourism. And every year the conference kicks off with an award ceremony where as destination marketers, we can apply for a bunch of different categories. And every year since I've been with Visit Champaign County, so for 10 years, I've submitted our visitor's guide, now known as the Experience Guide. And one of the reasons why I submit it is because it is done completely in-house. So I spend most of my spring and summer writing it, talking to our local businesses, hearing their stories, working with local photographers, including our own on staff, Marcus Flynn, on capturing what is happening in the community. And then I spend my summer designing the guide while also selling the ads too. So it's a big project for us. It's a passion project. And so I submit it every year. But the way the categories work in terms of budget, we're in the higher budget category, but we're on the low end of that spectrum. So we're against those people that have really massive budgets that use ad agencies for all of their projects. So I never win. So instead, I just, sit there and drink some wine and kind of grumble and get a little sad because I think I'm really proud of, my
As you should be, yes.
But I never win. And this year, as I was reaching for my glass of wine, as they were reading the category, they said, Visit Champaign County. My team will tell you that I kind of left them in the dust. I just got up and
ran to the stage,
sprinted away to the stage with all of them kind of trailing behind me. And I feel a little bad about that, but I just never thought that they were ever going to call me ever. So I felt like Susan Lucci in that moment. Like, it's time.
It's my time.
Yeah. So,
well, that's amazing. Congratulations. Very well deserved. The Experience Guide is amazing every year. And you do a fabulous job. And what's funny is everyone that works in your orbit always knows when it's Experience Guide. I would call it Terri's season because you try to leave Terri alone. You don't really talk. You don't bug her with the small stuff around this very big crunch time. And then when she's done, you can also tell because she's not as stressed and she is a little bit more lax.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It's definitely a passion project, and it's one of my most challenging projects of the year. But I love it so much because it really truly reflects our community.
It tells such a good story about it is just a huge storybook about the community. So I was very excited. You texted me right after a selfie with your award, which I loved. Yeah. So anyway, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's really awesome.
I appreciate it. Yeah. And there's lots of people that do help me along the way. So shout out to everybody who's been there in the past or is currently there that kind of keeps me sane through the process.
Yes. Well, that was a good way to sort of have your week, right?
Yes.
And at the conference and then roll into the weekend. So what did you do this past weekend?
Well, speaking of my competitive spirit, we went to do the Scrooge Christmas Trap escape room at CU Adventures in Time and Space. And like Visitor's Guide season, nobody likes to be around me in an escape room because I'm a little mean and I like to...
it's your type A coming out.
My type A coming out. But I was actually pretty good this time. It was hard. I've done all of their escape rooms, and there's not a formula per se, but you can kind of know what types of things you're looking for. And I struggled in a couple of ways, and we had to get a couple of hints. But we made it with 29 seconds to spare.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So it was my daughter, my boyfriend, and his son, and we all went together, and we had a really good time, and we won. And then we had to go sort of debrief,
decompress,
and process everything that happened. So we went across the street to Broadway Food Hall, and we got some really delicious food from Taste of Both Worlds, and just kind of talked about the escape room and let it simmer. I'm still simmering on it. It'll take me a little while.
It's a very high intense situation when you're in it. Yes.
Yeah. You've done one, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I love it.
Yeah. Are you type A in that situation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of a balance, I would say. I would say my husband is way better at this type of stuff than I am from the more like strategic level stuff, but I can pick up on some of the details, and then I get really intense and start yelling at people.
Yeah, I think that's what it is I start and I'm like just like kind of processing everything and pointing things out, and then when people aren't moving fast enough, then I get a little testy.
Yeah.
Like once we did an escape room with my little brother, and he just would pick things up and go, that's interesting.
As if that's helpful.
What's interesting? Share. What are you talking about? He's like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, you need to just get out of my space right now. So, yeah.
They're the best. They have the best
Oh my gosh.
escape rooms. It's why Neil Patrick Harris loves them.
It's, they are such a gem. They are so smart and creative and thoughtful in the way they do things. It's just so different from any other escape room that's out there.
And it's such a fun weekend activity, good for all ages.
Yep.
So, yeah. Highly suggest going to Sea Adventures.
Definitely. What did you do this weekend?
Let's see. We went to the basketball game, which had an unfortunate end, but it was kind of interesting in that it was so early, But anyways, we went to the basketball game. Then we checked out hibernation going on at Pour Brothers. So they have all their winter stouts going on from a lot of local breweries, including Triptych. So we went and checked that out and had some food. And then I also checked out the Christmas market at Riggs. So it's appropriate for today's pod, but love going out there and shopping at all the little huts and also eating all the amazing food that they have. So had some brats and had some pretzel bites with cheese sauce, which were incredible. Cupcakes. Yeah, it was really good. Mulled wine, hot chocolate, all of the above.
That's amazing.
So, and it was packed.
So you had a lot of beer, a lot of chocolate, and brats this weekend. It sounds like a really good weekend.
It was a very good weekend.
That's awesome. Did you buy anything at the Christmas market?
Yes. So we bought some gifts and then some for ourselves. We bought Pipapo. We got a new ornament to hang in our window that they made, and we also got one of their cute little Santas that they make, but we got an angry looking Santa.
We have an angry Santa too.
Of course you do. Yep. So I was obsessed with it, and I was like, all right, we it's appropriate to have just an angry Santa sometimes. So we got that, and then we got a lot of soap from Right Soap so that we can give those out as gifts. And what else did we get? I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, a few items. And so, yeah, it's just such a great market. Yeah. And I love just that so many people are hanging out outside in the cold. Like that's a true, German market where you bundle up to be outside.
Right. I think it is such a great addition to our community. It's been happening a couple of years now, and I just love that it happens at Riggs. It's the perfect spot for it.
It really is. So, yeah, great weekend.
Very exciting. Well, I'm excited about today's guests, and we're going to save the answer to our trivia question until we talk with them because, as you may recall, it was sort of Riggs inspired. So we're going to hold off on that, and we'll be back shortly with our guests from Riggs Beer Company. All right, and we are back, and we are very excited to welcome Matt Riggs with Riggs Beer Company with us today. Before we start our conversation, we wanted to go ahead and get our trivia question answered. So last week, we asked 3 cats live at the Riggs Beer Company. Which of these is the name of one of the Riggs cats?
All right, and the options were Chicken, Mick, and Nugget.
And I was really hoping for Chicken, but Matt, since you're here, which one is it?
Well, a little clue, if people want like a little clue, if they haven't quite made their mind up, and this is going to be hard because you're going to have to know something about beer making, but all of our cat names always have to have something to do with brewing.
Oh.
And
then I don't want it to be Chicken.
Chicken is not involved in the brewing process, at least at our brewery. There's a lot of interesting beers out there in the world with interesting ingredients, but chicken is not used in any Riggs beer. So Nugget is a variety of hop.
Oh.
And he's a golden cat, kind of like Golden Nugget. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's Nugget. And then the other two out there, Millie, because there's a grain mill, Millie.
Appropriate.
That's our only girl. And then Dunkles, which is German for dark. So like a Dunkel Lager or a Dunkles, you could kind of say either one, because he's a darker cat.
Okay.
Got it.
And all of the cats have bios on your website.
Yeah, they have their own Facebook page. We post every now and then. I mean, here lately, not a lot probably because we've been pretty busy, but we do post cute, pictures and videos of their antics.
Yeah, because they're all over the farm. When you go there to drink, it's so amazing. You're just sitting there drinking your beer, and here come the cats.
Yeah, I was born and raised on a farm, and we had cats. And for the brewery, we have cats for similar reasons. Obviously for companionship, but also they're working cats. The brewery sits on 20 acres. We actively farm 16 of those acres in small grain production that we use for the beer. And we always have, several tons of grain sitting around on the property. So they are cute, but that's not their only purpose. It's an important purpose, but they also control the mouse population very, very nicely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gotta love cats. Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit because I want to talk about the farm and all of that stuff. So before we get started, why don't you actually just give us an introduction of yourself and kind of the background of how you got to starting Riggs Beer Company?
So my brother and I were born and raised in the southeast corner of the county on a pretty small family farm. My family, German immigrants, moved over, pretty common story, drained lowland down, pretty much all of Champaign County is pretty low. And that's why we've got this nice black dirt, because it's just held nutrients and moisture for so long. So we've got so much nice, rich topsoil. Frederick and Wilhelmina Moore came over and actually bought the first chunk of land that our family still farms today in 1874. So my family's never left. We've been farming down there ever since. But we never went bust. Depression, economic cycles. Weathered all those storms, but never grew a ton. So we only farm just over 300 acres, which makes us a really small farm. Most farms even double that size. A lot of times, at some point, all of the heirs kind of say, "Okay, we're just going to rent this out and just get a check or whatever for the land." So it's kind of been a point of pride that we still operate it. That was really the inspiration to start the brewery was, how do we add more value to what the farm can produce? And we thought about a pumpkin patch or popcorn or stuff like that. And then we're shooting ideas back and forth while we're drinking a bunch of beers, and we're like, wait a second.
Duh.
Beers.
Well, I'm so happy you chose beer out of those options.
Yeah, I mean, I like popcorn, but it's not beer.
No.
Yeah.
So that was many, many years ago. We kind of had that idea and thought, hey, we are nowhere near ready. So let's go get educated. Let's go save up some money. We didn't really come from money. We didn't have the ability to just kind of have startup capital. So it took a long time, years and years of just kind of squirreling away some money, because you can't really just go to a bank and say, hey, I've got a great plan. You got to go to a bank and say, hey, I've got a great plan, and a sizable amount of the cash needed to start. And then as it turns out, when you do that, if you do come to a bank with a good plan, you've prepped yourself and you brought some money, they tend to say, yeah, that's actually exactly what we do as a bank. Let's do this. So, yeah, that's kind of how it worked. Darren and I both went to U of I here. We were both on ROTC scholarships, which means we went on active duty afterwards, after we graduated. Traveled around the world, saw a lot of places. In my mind, generally, I've made a positive correlation between the amount of beer that a society drinks and how nice of a place it is. The more they drink, the nicer it is. In my opinion, the place I would like to live. So yeah, I think as a whole, beer is a good thing for society. We were both stationed in San Diego, California for a while, and even 15 years ago, the local beer scene was booming there, and that's kind of the final shove we needed to say, hey, this trend of regionally made beer is exploding out here out west. We see it at other places around the country. Being good true Midwesterners, we thoroughly vet trends before adopting them. Usually here, that's the way that I like to put it.
Yep.
We just kind of saw the writing on the wall that, hey, regionally made beer is going to come to Champaign County, and so we both got out of the military about the same time and got in the brewing industry. Prepped ourselves, spent several years working. Darren worked out west. I worked in Germany, where my wife is from, and then we decided eventually we kind of saved enough money, gotten enough experience, enough formal training in brewing that, hey, it's time to do this.
So And, your experience in Germany also shaped the type of beer that you guys make. I know you like to talk about you're not a craft brewery. You're a German brewery. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I don't really like the term craft because what does that mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of hard for me to see, a brewer that's worked in a brewery for 30 years and has dedicated their life to producing this product and highly skilled, dedicated, but because they're at a big facility that makes a lot of beer, they're not a craftsman.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That to me. So what does craft mean? That's the problem. It's tough to tie down exactly what it does mean. The trade organization that kind of represents most American breweries has tried along the years to define what exactly that means, and they've had to change their definition a whole bunch of times, which I think solidifies
says a lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what I like to say is we're a regional brewer. We make local beer. We make German and American beers. We're a lager and wheat beer brewery. We are a grain to glass brewery. We brew a lot of the beer with ingredients that we grow ourselves. I like to say things that are like tangibly mean things rather than craft, which to me is a little bit of an ambiguous term.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing it more and more now. Successful craft breweries being bought up by really large breweries making internationally owned breweries making a whole bunch of sub brands that kind of confuse the consumer into thinking that they're craft.
Yeah.
So I like to use the terms that actually like have tangible meaning.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So talk about your brewing process a little bit.
Well, the basic process is ancient and simple. We take grain from the field that has starch in it. There's some other stuff, but most of the volume of barley, wheat, corn, rice, most of the volume of the grain is just starch, which is kind of an energy packet that the grain needs in order to build roots and a sprout, and it's just enough energy so that when the sprout gets up above the ground, it can switch to solar power. That little battery of starch gets it started and then switches to solar. That starch, we have other plans for, obviously. In the brewing process, when we crush the grain, mix it with hot water, we're able to use naturally pre-existent enzymes, which are just kind of a complexly folded protein that's in the grain, to convert that starch into sugar. So on brew day, we're making 500, 1,000, or 1,500 gallons of sugar water in a day, depending on our batch size and what size tank we're going into. That takes about 8 to 18 hours, depending on the beer and how many batches we're making. And then the third step is essentially feeding that sugar water to yeast. And yeast is just a single-celled fungus microbe that eats most of the sugar that's in solution and makes alcohol, CO2, and a whole bunch of other flavors and aromas that, if you're a beer drinker, you like. Leaves a little bit of sugar behind. The more complex, longer-chain sugars get left behind, which is why beer, has body and flavor. If you're looking for the lowest sugar, lowest carb beverage, there's other things out on the market, but I don't think they taste good. A little bit of residual sugar in a beer, it makes beer the beverage that's why it's still the number one alcoholic beverage that humans choose.
Mm-hmm.
For a couple thousand years in a row now. It's just a balanced beverage.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the process: starch to sugar to alcohol and other byproducts.
And do you have a favorite part of the process?
I love it all. I really do. I'm in love with the process, all the way from planting the grain in the ground. And that's the fun thing about being a farmer brewer, is we get to control even more of the process than most brewers do. So working ground and planting seeds in the ground that I know are going to be beer is equally rewarding and enjoyable as doing a sensory sample, pulling off the tank and drinking it, to me, and everything in between. There's really not anything I don't enjoy. I love the whole process.
It's a whole labor of love. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think if you don't love the entire process, you're kind of setting yourself up for maybe messing something up. I know that every single step along the way from grain to glass is important. So you got to love it, or else it's hard to make a really great product consistently if you don't love the whole process. So yeah, I do like all of it. And I'm glad that I don't have to do the exact same thing over and over. There's a lot of different steps in that road from grain to glass, and it keeps it really interesting.
So I want to talk about some of that you talked about alluded to, the planting of the seeds, because this is one of the things that makes you guys a little bit different from some other people out there. You guys use the grain from your farm in this process. And I think, we talk a lot about farm to table as a concept, but very few people actually do farm to table. You guys do that, farm to beer, whatever you want to call it. So talk a little bit about the process of planting the seeds, harvesting these, what it takes to put this in the beer, and then just your overall goals on sustainability, because I think this is really a really unique talking point for Riggs Beer Company.
Yeah, and just to quantify it, so we are close. I didn't pull the numbers up today, but we're close to about 300,000 pounds of corn, wheat, and barley that we've grown that we've used in our beer. So I like to be real clear about how we quantify things and transparent about that. The beer that I brought in for you guys to try today, that's actually all German ingredients. So not all of our beers are all our own grain. We found with German lagers particularly, to make a great local example of a German lager, you kind of have to use German grain, because grain, like wine grapes,
Yeah.
it kind of grows differently and tastes differently depending on where you're at. But yeah, for our flagship beers and a lot of our seasonal beers, they're either a large percentage or in many cases completely 100% Riggs grown grain, corn, wheat, and barley. We are the Midwest's leading grain to glass brewer. There's no brewer in the Midwest of the U.S. that comes close to that, which is a point of pride. It's a lot of fun, very rewarding. But doesn't really mean much if the beer doesn't taste good. Mm-hmm. And so we have to be really careful to say, okay, listen, this is the raw materials we have access to from our farm. Here are the raw materials that we have access to from elsewhere that everybody else also has access to. How do we maximize our own grain use so that we can pass more value down to the farm without losing sight of the primary goal of making the best beer we can? And that means for some beers, and in some years when we have crops that are a little bit different, sometimes we have to bring our barley back a little bit and kind of lower the percentage we use in a certain beer. Or what's been, as of late, we've actually had a couple really great barley years in a row where we've been able to increase that in our core brands. This is all at the same time where North America, the United States last year had its lowest barley crop in a century. So there's been some real agronomic problems in our primary growing area in the U.S. And this is part of sustainability, and this is part of being able to adapt and survive and flourish in a climate where weather patterns are changing and they're more severe than they used to be, and more like sporadic. Mm-hmm. I really believe that one of the solutions that we need to pull out of the tool bag and implement is a more diverse food production system that isn't a monoculture from region to region. And our barley crops that we've grown here compared to the U.S. barley crop at large in the last 2 years is a perfect example of that, where we've had 2 years of pretty terrible crops nationwide, which is specifically up kind of Montana, North Dakota region. But here in central Illinois, we've actually had really awesome barley crops. I know I'm going down a little bit of a rabbit hole here, but that, I think, is a very strong argument for what we're trying to do here to make production agriculture a little bit more diverse regionally, which can be a shock absorber when regions get hit with, really hot, dry weather like they had in the Mountain West region last year. Yeah, had awesome barley crops here. Perfect. Things want to grow here pretty badly. We have really nice soils, and for barley, it's a little bit hot and humid in the summer. So that's one of the challenges going seed to glass, especially barley, is a very kind of fungal susceptible plant. And I like to call Illinois in June a corn jungle.
We love corn.
Yeah, love corn.
Love corn.
Corn jungle.
And we don't have palm trees, but it is a jungle.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Go into a field of corn in June or July, and it's a corn jungle.
Yeah.
And that obviously breeds fungus, which makes it really tough for barley. So one of the things we figured out is growing winter barley that we actually plant in October and get out of the field before it gets really hot and humid, as compared to growing like a spring barley, has allowed us to deal with that reality and have lower fungal pressure than we would normally see for spring barley. That and we're always playing with new varieties, Plant breeders are also a tool that we need to use to survive in the future and flourish in the future.
It's a good thing we have a research university in our own backyard.
So I mean, the variety of wheat in our wheat beer was developed by the university. It grows well here because it was bred and developed here. We're also working with the small grains department at the U of I. We've got a demonstration plot out at the brewery where we've got 18 different varieties of small grains growing that are all good candidates to be made into beer, and we're just kind of testing how they like it here. And they're doing the hard work of doing some breeding and crossing. We work with Virginia Tech, who has a really nice barley breeding program, another public university. So I don't have to deal with corporations and patents and all this stuff. These researchers are paid by the taxpayer to do this type of work, and we're just kind of helping facilitate that and give industry feedback on, hey, I know this wheat variety grows really well here, but it's not really a good candidate for malting and brewing, so could we focus on this one? Can we cross these guys or whatever? And I try not to get too in the weeds on plant breeding because that's definitely not my expertise, but it's been really fun to collaborate with the university on this stuff. The variety of corn that we use in our American lager is a very specific, lowest oil corn on the planet. There's no lower oil content corn on the planet, which turns out to be really great for brewing, and we license that directly from the university. And
I think I also remember at one point you told me that also helps take a step out of the process, or it decreases the time in one of the steps, right?
Wow. People listen to brewery tours. Wow. That's cool. Yeah. So, oil in beer isn't good. It kind of degrades the shelf stability of the product. Some brewers will use degermed corn flakes or degermed corn grits, where there's been a mechanical separation of the oily portion of the grain. The starchy portion is left over. Some brewers will use just corn sugar, like dextrose, processed corn sugar. We wanted to really make old school beer, all natural, traditional old school beer, and it used to be that American brewers would just grind up corn and use it. So one day I just Googled low oil corn, and if you're listening to the podcast, just Google it. I think it's now the second search result because the first one's an article about this. But there's a lab here at the U of I. Professor Stephen Moose is in charge of it. It's called the Illinois Long-Term Experiment. It's the longest continually ran natural selective trial in higher order plants in the world. So what that means is since the 1890s, they've been selecting just through, hey, this ear of corn had lower oil than this one, so we're going to take the seeds from it and try to push oil further down. This one had the highest oil of the lot. We're going to plant it separately. We're going to just naturally see how far we can diverge oil content and protein content. And I Googled low oil corn thinking, how can we drive oil down without mechanically separating it? And it turns out that, in this town called Urbana,
there's an expert.
There's the lowest oil corn on the planet where they've been driving oil down for 100 years.
Story.
Yeah, I love it. So, and it turns out Professor Moose loves lager beer. So it was a match made in heaven. Yeah.
Very convenient.
So we've been working with them for several years, and they're continuing to kind of tweak it, drive the oil down, but now also kind of breed in some modern genetic traits, because this low oil corn that is grown on a very small plot of land on our farm in the southeast corner of the county, if you drive by it and if you know corn, you're like, what is that thing? That is weird looking. It's really tall. The ear is way high on the plant, which is not good because then it's top heavy. It falls over. Its tassel looks like a broom. It's just this massive tassel sticking out the top of the corn plant. And that's how all corn used to look until breeders were like, hey, all that energy that we're sending to the tassel to make way too much pollen that we need, let's make it make bigger ears. We're working with them to kind of...
reconfigure?
Yeah. Update us to like a 1990s corn.
Okay.
Because a lot of these varieties are falling off patent. So the genetics are no longer like trade secrets of certain seed companies. They're now in the public domain. So we're not going to get like 2020, like racehorse variety corn is what we call in the industry of 240 bushel corn. But we're trying to crossbreed this really ultra low oil with some off patent 1990s, which was still like in comparison, very, very good corn. So all sorts of fun stuff that, if we weren't here in Champaign County, I wouldn't have access to this fantastic land grant university to collaborate with.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
And it's not just the grains that you're using in terms of sustainability. It's also all the other things that are part of it. Can you talk about some of those other components?
Yeah. So, sustainability, I think you can come at it from a couple different angles. You can come at it because, you want to lower your impact. Beer brewing is a resource intensive thing. We're getting things hot and then cold again, a lot of processes. I think it's still worth it, right? Like, I don't want to just drink water. And
I think a lot of people would agree with you on that. Yeah.
Me.
Carly, especially.
So what we want to do is limit the impact, the resource impact needed. That's kind of looking at it from the environmental angle. But you can also just look at it from economics, especially now. Utility costs, everything's getting more expensive. And I'll tell you, having the largest brewery solar array in the state of Illinois that offsets 90% of our total electrical usage at the brewery kind of made sense a couple years ago, 5 years ago when we put it in, but it really makes sense now. And when people are talking about their power bills going up, part of me is like, well, I kind of saw, I knew power was, and fuel, all these things were going to get more expensive. There's things you can do to insulate yourself from that. Now, if you're renting an apartment, that becomes more difficult. But if you're sitting on 20 acres and you're manufacturing things, panels now are very competitive economically, and you'd be kind of crazy not to invest in them. So and I think I come at it from both angles. I'm not what I would call like a hyper environmentalist. I definitely have a connection to the land and want to do things to lower impact on the environment. But I also want to be more economically competitive and pay less for power than other people in my industry. Why not?
Yeah.
Gives me a bit of a competitive advantage. Now I can take that 13 cents a can or whatever it cost me and, pay somebody better or upgrade a piece of equipment or something else. So there's really a lot of reasons, I think, to look at your inputs. So we do a sustainability report where we do what's called benchmarking. We take all of our inputs and over a given year and divide it by the total beer production that we have to give us like a per gallon or barrel of resource use of all these different resources. And then we can compare that to like industry averages and to our historical performance. And what that does is helps kind of identify low-hanging fruit. Like, why is the industry average here so low and we're maybe struggling to get there? That means there's a process here that we could probably look at and get some gains from, kind of be more efficient.
Which you guys are very transparent about. You have your sustainability report on your website.
Yep.
You can go read more all about this. So
I like tangible things because words mean something, but not much.
And it's also very visible on your property. You can go and see everything and, as you're parking.
Yeah, the city of Urbana doesn't allow billboards anymore to be put up pretty much anywhere. But that solar array is kind of a giant billboard along Route 130, but it's really practical. So if people are looking for companies that are trying really hard to limit resource use, they can't drive past us and not see that. I think most people maybe that doesn't even register. I don't know. We haven't done a poll or a research to figure out how many people that connects with. But at the very least, like I can tell you, my power bill is like $200 this month for the brewery, and it should be like $1,400 normally.
Well, I look for those when I'm driving, or the mini grain bin, which is actually has corn in it, right?
Oh yeah, it's not for show. Yeah, we wouldn't put that'd be weird.
Somebody asked me that once. And when we were out visiting or recording a video with you at some point, you did a slow-mo thing for us so that we could get a nice action shot. But I was like, yes, there's actually something in that.
Yeah, that's our year's supply of brewing corn. So that ultra low oil, really special corn is in that bulk tank. And part of me as a farmer, if I were just to put up like a grain storage unit for show, part of me would die. Like, why? Use it.
Yes. Make it practical.
We had the old sign from Village Inn. So when we moved in, Village Inn was the last place to close out there. And the Village Inn sign was still up with kind of the weird shaped shield looking logo. That was iconic. And I grew up eating Village Inn. Yep. Great place, great pizza. When it was on the west side of town, right next to Farm Bureau, because my dad worked at Farm Bureau and we would go there all the time, play games in the game room. But anyway, so we cut that off because there was no way to like put a Riggs logo in that shield design that they had. And then the letter board where you could, half price pizza Tuesday nights or whatever, We just took that off and then put just Riggs Beer Company with a sticker on there. So our sign game was very low budget early on. And when we decided to step it up, we needed a sign that looked good. We needed something for people from the road to see so they could slow down and turn in. And we also needed somewhere where we could store like 330 bushels of corn. And that tank out there does all those things.
It's perfect.
And I want to talk about ambiance a little bit since we're talking about kind of what you have out there on the farm. So Riggs is a little bit different from other bars as well. You know, I remember when you guys first started, you really talked about how you don't have TVs in there and you have these long tables and you have this great beer garden and it's all about fostering connections and it's family friendly. You have a playground. So talk about...
And you've continuously added to that over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't want to be a bar or restaurant because we supply product to bars and restaurants. So one of the things that we kind of a litmus test for us is if we're going to do something or not is can other bars or restaurants in the area do this? And if the answer is yes, then no thanks. We don't do anything that works at other bars and restaurants because we don't want to be seen as a competitor to them. So all the stuff that we do, we try to make it stuff that others either can't do or don't want to do. It doesn't fit with the business model. It only really works for a brewery on 20 acres. So the festivals and stuff, you know, the outdoor Christmas market that I'm sure we'll talk about, you know, the no TVs, even on Super Bowl Sunday, I'm like, no, go watch the game at somewhere else. And I don't have anything against football. I follow Illini sports, but we want to be a place that's not that is exactly stripped down, facilitating you to unplug, either focus on something or focus on nothing, and maybe make a connection with somebody over a beer that normally you wouldn't sit next to. You kind of get forced into possibly sitting next to them at the bar or on one of the big tables. That's maybe the most rewarding thing of this whole venture, especially on the consumption side, on the taproom side, is when I see people that I know don't know each other starting to have a conversation over a beer, and there's not sports on, it's not loud, there's nothing distracting going on, and they can actually, I think beer historically has done a really good job at tearing down barriers between people. It's a social lubricant, is what I call it. It makes socializing a little bit easier for most people, myself included, and I think that's so important to our democracy to get people who would otherwise have no reason to communicate or hang out together and get them at the table over a beer and figuring out, hey, we're actually not that different. That's what beer can do, and that's what we want the tap room to do. And then just going back to the point about, you know, some of the weirder stuff that we do, most businesses don't sit on 20 acres. So we're going to do stuff where that space allows us to do some weird stuff like drone racing and put up a tent with a stage, you know, for Riggs Fest with live music that's completely free parking, free everything except the beverages, of course. You know, the German Christmas market. All these things take a lot of resources and land to do, and that's why we love doing them, because we know that none of our other partners in the community that also serve beers, they're not looking to do drone racing. I don't think that Bunny's is going to be doing drone racing downtown anytime soon. So
probably not. Probably not. But you guys also, I mean, I assume your events calendar has to be one of the most clicked pages on your website, because I know like people plan their entire weekends around going to Riggs and what food truck is going to be there when.
Yeah, this is something that we totally stole from California. So Darren and I were out there in San Diego County. When was that, man? That was like 2007 is when I moved out there. Food trucks were a big deal already, and I'm like, oh wow, this is actually cool. Really good food. They're focused on like only a few items, and they do those really well. And we saw, you know, breweries, smaller breweries that didn't want to deal with the kitchen and didn't want to be kind of diverted away, their focus diverted away from brewing, just bring in a food truck, and it really worked well. So when we came back home to start Riggs, we were the first ones to do that, have a bar model with only food trucks, but food trucks during all peak hours. And it worked just like it did in California. People love it. And now, like, you see these trucks everywhere. The number of trucks has probably increased by 500% since we opened. It's not because of us. It's just, I think we kind of showed that, hey, these are kind of cool.
This model works, yeah.
This model works. And it's worked out really well. And the last thing in the world I would want to do is be involved with the kitchen. I make a very good bowl of cereal.
That sounds like my diet.
It does.
But like, yeah.
How do you feel about Lunchables, Matt?
My wife's a great cook, but I think she's cooking a lot less now just because we're so busy. But
Yes. And speaking of being so busy, so you brought it up, but one of Terri and I's absolutely favorite things of the holiday season is the Riggs Christmas Market, which is taking up a lot of your time right now. So we appreciate you even making time for it to come talk to us right now. But tell us a little bit about that, when it started, what your expectations were, because it is constantly packed.
Yeah. So again, we just stole this from Germany. In outdoor German style Christmas markets with little huts, they're ubiquitous in Germany. You know, my wife's born and raised in a town of 5,000 people, and they've got one. Where I worked, the first brewery I worked at in Germany, they have a really nice one in the town of Miltenberg. They're just everywhere, and for good reason. It's really cool and cozy and fun. You're embracing winter instead of, if you don't want to embrace winter, then I'm not sure why you're here. Unless you're a farmer with a good, 700 acres of land.
Yep.
Like, you're going to have to embrace it.
You live in the Midwest. This is what happens.
It's actually not that bad if you have clothes that are
if you have proper
winter
clothing. Yes.
I see this all the time at the Christmas market. People come out in a sweatshirt and they're like not having a good time. I'm like, just pretend like you were going skiing. Just come out to the German outdoor Christmas market like you're going skiing. You're going to have a blast. It's going to be so fun because it's a unique experience that you've never had before, probably.
Just maybe wear a coat.
Wear a coat. Wear gloves. Wear a hat. Put some layers on. It's going to be fine. So back to the German Christmas market in Germany. That's an experience that my wife and I really enjoyed. She grew up with it. As soon as I started living there, I'm like, oh, this is really cool. We don't have this at home. We've got the one in Chicago and there's one in Naperville, but those are like typical. I'm not bashing them, but they're kind of what Americans do to things. We put our twist on it, and it's just like massive. And I've been to those a couple times, and I'm not going there this year. I don't need to search those out. We wanted to make a small town, like really well selected array of vendors with the authentic huts at a brewery. So all the beverage options are there. The hot spiced wine, hot cocoa, of course, the beers. We wanted to bring like a well curated example of that home. I think it's really resonated with folks. Again, I worked the parking lot during Christmas market, so I spent about 20 hours every weekend in the parking lot, parking cars during Christmas market season. And so I get to see the looks on people's faces, and it's fun because it's all over the board. I did have a family kind of interact with me in the parking lot, and they're like, I don't get it. Like, why we're so cold, and why are all these people here? I'm like, okay, that's okay.
Yep.
Hang out inside.
We've also got inside seating.
Yeah.
But like
it might seem a little crazy if you're only used to warm weather, right? I mean, like, why? I can maybe understand that. Yeah.
I've learned a few things in operating a business, and one of them is that no matter what you do, there's a segment that you're not going to connect with. They're not going to understand what you're doing, or they're not going to like it, and that is absolutely fine. What we do see is a lot of people come out and are like, wow, this feels unlike anything else I've ever been to. We've got the fire pits outside, propane and actual wood fire pit. The huts with really cool, unique, locally made stuff in there. Nothing you can buy in there is something you can get at a store. Mm-hmm. This is all like locally made stuff. That's one of the like requirements to be a vendor. We don't charge the vendors a penny. We don't want to. We want them to do really well, but we want them to make and bring really cool local stuff, and they do. Mm-hmm. And so I'm thrilled with how the Christmas market has turned out. Just like a massive outdoor German beer garden, we weren't sure that it would work here because nobody had really done it. A beer garden with seating for 300 people. A lot of people were like, you're crazy. People aren't going to come out here and just sit under a tree for no reason and drink beer. And I'm like, I think they will. I hope they will.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I was out there this past weekend, people weren't just by the fire or the tanks, right, getting warm. They were sitting out at the picnic tables in the dark drinking beer because they were all appropriately dressed and bundled up. So,
yeah, they've come to embrace what we hoped they would.
Yeah.
And we're very grateful for that.
Yeah. And a great place to do your holiday shopping.
Yeah. Last weekend. But I think this goes to show that everything that Riggs has done has been very thoughtful and intentional, and you didn't know what was going to happen as you did it, and it has paid off tremendously. I mean, you are so embraced in this community, and the number of people, I do a lot of community tours, right? I always drive past Riggs every single time. It's usually when you're closed. All they see is the big solar panel. Right now, I just took somebody out a couple weeks ago. They saw the Christmas market in the back, and they're all just like, what is this place? And they're just fascinated. You guys have done everything so thoughtfully and appropriately, and I think it shows. It shows. And the community has embraced you guys so much because you've thought about the community when you've put this together. And it's, I'm so proud to have Riggs in our community.
Well, thank you very much. Without the support of the community, obviously we'd have closed already. Somebody would be putting up a new road sign. I don't know what they do with that bulk tank now that's there. It would be empty at that point.
Yeah.
But no, and this community, I got to brag on it a little bit. I know you guys do it all the time. I got to do a little bit too because it's not normal. We sell beer throughout most of the state of Illinois, and the cool mix of folks that live here has made this concept what it is. I don't think we could live in any other community in the state of Illinois and have had this traction. And I want to make a point that a lot of people I don't think about. I couldn't have started this brewery in the suburbs. I would have had to rent a tiny little strip mall place, and as soon as we got good, the landlord would raise the rent. It's a tough thing, right? If you don't come from money starting a business, the cards are really stacked against you. And one of the coolest things about Champaign County is we've got this awesome demographic that's so diverse, and they value unique, fun stuff more than I think the average demographic throughout the state does. But it's also relatively affordable to do things here. Like, we bought that place. I don't have a landlord. If I did, the landlord would have jacked my rent up 30 times between when we started and now and taken everything that they could, right? You can build something here, and you can actually get off the treadmill and own and build equity in this community because the barriers are relatively low. You know, big city, Chicago, we wouldn't own anything up there. Southern California, where all these other breweries were popping up, you know, try to live there and afford it and actually stockpile cash at all. That's impossible. You're just all of your money that you're making is going to pay rent. And in Champaign County, we've got that cool dynamic where there's a lot of neat stuff going on. There's a really awesome customer base, but it's affordable to get in and build something from scratch.
I think we're going to take that and make it a soundbite and use it in all of our marketing moving forward.
Yes. Yeah.
Brought to you by Met Riggs.
Well, it's true. We wouldn't own this brewery if we would have started in a smaller, less. I don't have all the economic terms that you would use, but we're kind of an economic powerhouse here, right? Like, the university here makes it so that the downtimes aren't as deep. And it's kind of like uptimes all the time, it seems like. I'm knocking on wood,
yes.
Right? Who knows what's going to happen? But we're in a much better position than a lot of other communities are because of this land-grant university. It would be, I'm not sure that we would have really taken off if we would have been in a different market. I don't know if people would have really valued the local grain piece and said, "Oh, I'm going to pay a little bit more because you guys are growing it here too. I'm gonna facilitate that idea." I don't think a lot of other places would value that as much as this community does. But then, secondly, if you go into other markets that would value that, how do you even buy the place? So we're in a sweet spot.
Yeah. Well, I know we've had a long conversation already, but I want to make sure we're respectful of your time.
I do. Can I just butt in real quick? I do have 2 quick questions.
Oh, geez.
All right, rapid fire. I've
fire.
talked too long on all these, so I'm going to give you short answers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your number 1 selling beer.
Hefeweizen.
Yeah.
Your favorite beer.
Well, I mean, in economic terms, Hefeweizen because it pays the bills. That's a tough one. I like a little bit of variety, but yeah, the Hefeweizen and the American Lager are our top 2 year-round beers, and those are the ones that I drink the most of.
What are you drinking right now? The most of in your very busy non-sleep Christmas season?
Okay, so last night I had 2 American Lagers.
Okay.
Schwarzbier is our current seasonal. That's Schwarzbier just means black beer in German. It's a black lager.
And full disclosure, he did bring Terri and I a 4-pack, so we're
not drinking it right now,
but we will be partaking in it soon. So,
whatever the new seasonal is, that's always fun because it's something you haven't had in a while because it's been out of season. Mm-hmm. But yeah, American and Hef are my 2 go-tos.
Okay. And what is the one thing that has, or maybe let me rephrase this.
You said 2 questions.
I know. I'm sorry. You know I love the topic of fear. You knew this was going to be a longer podcast. You should have known, Terri. Okay. And obviously you've sort of mentioned this, that like what you thought would happen maybe is even better than you've ever expected from, the big picture of everything. What is the one thing that has been the best surprise throughout this entire process?
Oh man, that's a good one. Oh, okay. That's a great question. So the one thing that comes to mind that I'm really happy happened, and timing and everything worked out, is that they started serving beer at sporting events, at U of I sporting events.
Yes,
we were so
big one.
Happy about this.
Yep.
I mean, it's so fun to go to a football game and drink the beer that I like to drink, and it's cool that my name's on it.
Yeah.
That's really neat, and it's been good. I mean, has it been like game changing for the business? No, it hasn't. That type of volume at one place a couple days a year, only during game days, that's not changing the course of our company, but it's really freaking cool.
It's really, and I loved the local reaction to it once it was announced. You guys announced it on the Facebook page, and then it blew up. Everyone was excited, and still everyone goes to games, football and basketball games, and posts about it with pictures. Except I do have to say, I am a season ticket holder for women's basketball, and we're gonna have to talk to Josh about this when we have him on the podcast, because I need to be able to drink local beer at the women's games too.
Yeah.
So that I'm putting that on my to-do list, and I'm calling them out right now.
I think that's a fair request.
I think it's an extremely fair request, and you should make it. Yeah,
yes, I'm going to. So anyway,
put the pressure on.
Now back to sorry, I interrupted.
We always
Terri.
ask every guest 3 questions. I do think you answered one of them already with your great soundbite, so I'm going to leave that one off. So you probably know what these questions are, since I know you've listened to a few podcasts. So, what is your favorite restaurant?
I'll answer it this way. That's a tough question because I sell to them.
Right.
So I got to be careful here. I made a New Year's resolution this year, first time ever, and it was to eat a fish sandwich every week of the year. I allow myself plus or minus a Friday. Like I could be a Thursday or a Sunday, Saturday or Sunday, because sometimes on a Friday I don't have time. But every week, with an emphasis on Friday, to eat a fried fish sandwich. Best resolution I've ever made in my life, and I can tell you that as of right now, I've made it this far.
Wow.
So
okay.
We are getting close to being able to say all year I kept a resolution, and I can tell you we are blessed with a lot of really great fish sandwiches. I'm going to say there's 3 top tier fish sandwiches for sure. I haven't been to every place. One I've been to the most is Boomerang's, because it's right next to the brewery. Like I'm there in 6 minutes, and I'm having lunch, and I'm able to get back to work. They have a top tier fish sandwich. Legends on campus does a very, very good fish sandwich.
Yep.
And of course, Bunny's off the chart, very good fish sandwich, and massive amount of fish. I usually have to take a nap, so I've got to plan it in my day.
That's a good, yeah.
If I've got a couple hours right after lunch on a Friday, I'll be like, okay, this is a Bunny's week, because I'm going to be in a coma after I eat this thing.
Yeah.
So those are 3 of my favorite places to go. And they're very good.
I like that. No one's ever mentioned that before.
No, but we get a lot of questions at Visit Champaign County on fish sandwiches. So it's good to know your responses, so we can add those to our list.
I went to a place down in St. Louis that shall remain nameless when I was down there on a Friday earlier this year. And I looked up, hey, best fish sandwiches in St. Louis. And I can tell you, the place I went to that was on that list, nowhere near the caliber of all 3 of the places I just mentioned.
All right.
There you go.
Yep. Okay. That's saying a lot. Okay. So I'm not going to phrase the question like I usually do about what you do on the weekends. What do you do when you're not at the brewery?
I farm.
Yeah.
Pretty much don't do anything else. My wife and I try to, when the world is normal, take a couple weeks every January or February and fly back to Germany. That's the slow time for us. wholesale business and tap room is slow those first 2 months of the year, slower than the rest. So we do try to go back over there and visit her family. Her whole family's still over there. And I've got a lot of friends from the brewing industry and brewing school there that I like to go and visit. And I like to ski. I'm not a great skier, but good enough to, go down the alpine slopes and have a lot of fun. So that's the one thing we do is an annual trip to Germany. It's been a little bit messed up with COVID, and my brother got mobilized in the Navy last year. He stayed in the reserves, so we are overdue.
Yeah.
So we are getting ready to take a nice long trip. And it sounds extravagant, but honestly, we stay with family the whole time, so we don't.
It's not extravagant, Matt. You guys work so hard.
And we sleep,
which is the biggest cost,
at
right?
her
The
parents'
lodging.
house.
Yeah,
it's
amazing.
Our lodging's zero. They pick us up from the airport. We cut some firewood for them. They call it even. It's actually a great time.
That's great. Well, I'm glad you guys get your downtime because, as you kind of sauntered into the room to start the podcast, you look like you were ready to just collapse on the ground. So we are so thankful for you, for Darren, for Carolyn, the whole Riggs family, and all of your team for all that you do to just bring this incredible experience to Champaign County.
Hey, if you keep drinking it, we'll keep brewing it.
Deal.
I don't think that's a hard thing to say,
Deal.
to commit to. Carly's all over it. So anyway, thank you, Matt, so much for your time and for all that you guys do. It's great having you here today.
Thanks for having me.
Today's episode is brought to you by Furniture Lounge, which is one of my absolute favorite stores in Champaign-Urbana. They specialize in mid-century modern, and they've been around since 2002. So they are located in downtown Champaign at 11 East University Avenue, and their store is filled with everything from furniture to artwork to vintage clothes and records. And one of my favorite things about the place, besides the fact that I have a lot of their items now in my house, is that it's a great store to buy one-of-a-kind gifts for the people that you need to buy gifts for.
Yeah, you see a lot of people coming in and out of there with just the most great treasures that they're going to be bringing to their home. I remember one time we had one of our fellow colleagues from the Rockford area who was shopping down there. And I think he came back several times to pick up additional things because he was so impressed with the inventory that they have there. So they do such a great job. They're really curators is what they are.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so you can go to the store, obviously, and you should go buy as many things as you can. But they always do a great job, too, of posting to their social media accounts about the availability of maybe some specialty items. So if you aren't already, follow Furniture Lounge on Instagram, on Facebook. It's at Furniture Lounge for both platforms. You can always keep an eye out for some really fun things, but also try to scoop something up if they're posting it for sale on Facebook or Instagram. So, and as a side note, Furniture Lounge is always buying new items. So you can always expect a fresh rotation of really unique stuff in their store. So if you have mid-century items that you want to sell, give them a call because they would likely be interested. But yeah, they're always sort of going out and buying new things, whether it's just a few pieces at a time or buying full estate sales. They keep a fresh rotation, so make sure to go in and check them out.
Lots of reasons to go back often.
Again, a true Champaign-Urbana gem, and go visit them at 11 East University Avenue or give them a call at 217-418-5388. Thank you, Furniture Lounge.
Thank you, Furniture Lounge.
All right, Terri, we have, again, as always, so much going on this upcoming weekend with a lot of holiday themes. So, Terri, what's going on the weekend of the 16th through the 18th?
Well, it's the last weekend kind of to get your shopping done. So definitely remember to shop local this weekend. But when you're not shopping, we do have some great events. So this one I'm really excited about. I'm doing it myself. It's the 5th annual St. Joe Santa 5K Run Walk. And it's really you're out there in your Santa hat and they give you beards and all sorts of stuff. So it's just a whole bunch of people dressed as Santa running through St. Joseph. So going to be heading out there Saturday morning. You can still sign up and take part in this fun race. Afterwards, you can have some hot chocolate, some milk and cookies. You can get your picture taken with Santa or the Grinch, depending on where you fall.
I like that the Grinch is added.
Yep. So I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I know some of the people that run it, they're former St. Jude runners with me, so they always do a great job. So I'm excited to support them in this race. But check it out online and get registered. Also happening this weekend is your last chance to catch the Santa's Secret Star show at the planetarium. The final show is going to be this weekend on December 17th. You can find out how Santa finds his secret star so he can get back to the North Pole. Very important information. So bring your kids. It's a little bit magical. Great way to get them in the spirit of the holidays. Planetarium always does an amazing job, and it's a really fun, interactive experience.
Yes, we always say one of the secret gems of Champaign-Urbana is the Parkland College Planetarium.
100%. And then talking about, going outside and celebrating our winter time is the Winter Solstice Celebration. The Urbana Park District is hosting this on Saturday from 4 to 7 p.m. at Anita Purvis Nature Center there in Crystal Lake Park, celebrating the shortest day of the year, which, I do kind of love it when it gets, dark. It makes me feel like I can lounge a little bit more than I usually allow myself to, but I also hate walking my dog in the dark.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of happy that this is going to be it and we're going to start to see more light after this. Anyway, as part of the celebration, they'll be making wildlife treats, doing some guided hikes through Boosie Woods, and also doing a candlelit winter spiral walk, which is very intriguing. So definitely make some plans to go out there, celebrate the shortest day of the year as we get ready to welcome some sunshine back into our life.
Yes. All right. Well, another fun event that's going on is the Drink and Drag Ho Ho Holiday Showcase. I had to say that slowly so I got the title right. That's happening on Saturday evening, 7 p.m. at City Center in Champaign. 6 drag queens that are ready to entertain. 1 holiday number plus 2 others from each.
Yeah, I bet this is going to be a lot of fun.
It should be a lot of fun, yes, for sure. All right, and then the last thing, again, speaking to some of that last-minute shopping that you have to do while supporting local, is the mistletoe market. So this took place earlier in the month in Urbana, so this is the Champaign version. It is Sunday, December 18th at the Venue CU from 11 to 5. That's located in downtown Champaign. There's going to be 30-plus vendors on hand with gifts that range in a broad category. So there's also going to be horse and carriage rides available too. I love the mistletoe market. I do a lot of my gift shopping there. So
great stocking stuffers for sure.
And you and I were at the last one in Urbana texting. You went first and then texted me about things that I needed to do when I got there, and I did them.
Yep.
So
I'll probably beat you there this time as well.
that's probably true. Yes, yes. All right. So our next Champaign-Urbana fun fact, Terri.
Yes. So Bonnie Blair is a Parkland College graduate and an athlete who went on to win 5 Olympic gold medals in what sport?
And the choices are badminton, speed skating, or weightlifting.
We'll tell you next time.
All right.
Yeah. So with all these events and great things that we talked about, we'd love to hear what you're doing out and about in the Champaign-Urbana area. Contact us through chambanaproud.com. If you have something you want us to talk about or you want to learn more about, share your feedback there. We always want to hear what's going on in the community. But this is your last weekend to get out there before the holidays. So make sure you're out there shopping local and enjoying all the wonderful events that are being put on by the very passionate people of our community.
Yes, and we'll see you at our next episode, or you'll hear from us at the next episode, really. But we're really excited. We have the mayors of Champaign and Urbana joining us, so we'll be talking with Mayor Finan and Mayor Marlin, and that's going to be a really fun time.
I can't wait for that conversation.
Cheers, Terri.
Cheers, Carly.